Okay, let's finish our supply talk and talk a little bit about fabric. So we have our rotary cutter, and I will show you. This is the, you need a ruler kind of like this, okay? This is a Fiskars, just 24 inches, because you really do want it to go the length of your mat. And my cutting mat is an Omnigrid mat. You need a self-healing mat. This makes things very easy. Don't let my table behind you fool anything. You can't, I haven't found a table. You can get a table like this and cover it with plastic, but really the mat is what you need. And I forgot to mention starch. I use Best Press, Mary Ellen's Best Press, and I do starch my fabric. I starch my blocks. It keeps them nice and crisp, so they're nice and flat. Now we're going to talk about fabric a little bit. So those are the other things. So you need a mat. You need a rotary ruler, a ruler. It's not a rotary ruler, but you use it with a rotary cutter. Okay. And I'll show you how to cut fabric in another technique video. But let's talk about, you are going to need batting. Here's the batting. This might be Warm and Natural. I can't remember. Warm and Natural or Mountain Mist. Let me see. But you do want it to be cotton also. So this is 100% cotton, needle batting, Mountain Mist. And I like the thin batting. I do not like that fat batting that makes a very puffy quilt, unless you want that. For wall quilts, I just use the nice flat batting. Okay, now let's do a little bit of fabric here. I'm going to show you the back of this fabric. And you can see up here at the top that it has a finished edge. Okay, this is your selvage, and you can tell I'm a homeschooler, a homeschooling mom, because I've got my cards ready. That's the finished edge, okay? So you have the selvage. The raw edge is over here. Let me see now. It looks like the bottom selvage is cut off. So selvages are opposite each other, just like that. And then you have your raw cut edge, which is over here. This is also your crosswise grain. Okay, this is the crosswise grain. This is your lengthwise grain. Okay, so selvage, lengthwise grain. And then you have your bias. And your bias runs this way. Now the difference, okay, so the bias is going to give you the most stretch in a fabric. The lengthwise is going to give you the least. Crosswise is going to have a little bit more stretch than the lengthwise. And there's your selvage. Okay, so when a pattern or something talks about these parts, now you know. Okay, and with the quilting, you want to make sure that you don't cut your fabric on the bias. A wall hanging, can you imagine cutting your wall hanging on the bias? It's just going to stretch. So you don't want to do that. All right. Now, usually when you get a cut of fabric, and this is, I think this is this might be an 1/8. I'm not sure. When you get it, sometimes your fabric's not straight, and you can actually straighten your fabric out a little bit by pulling it on the bias. And I do that sometimes. This is pretty straight because it came in a pre-cut pack. And for most of the quilts in this, you can use a 1/4 or an 1/8. And I would just suggest a 1/2. Okay, so a 1/2 yard for these, even though they're mini quilts. And that's because if you mess up, you need some more fabric, right? And you don't want to get a nice little color design going and then not have enough. And the fabrics that I picked, and you don't have to use designer fabrics. I got these because I thought they were really pretty, but this is a Riley Blake collection that I'm going to use, and hopefully I have enough, and if not, guess what? We're going to use what I have. But always get a good 100% cotton for quilting. It washes well. It's strong when it's wet, basically. You want to try and get a color fast one. I don't wash my fabric before my quilts anymore. I used to do that, but I don't find myself washing my quilts very long, or very often. I don't wash them. So if you think you're going to wash a quilt, and some people might, you want to make sure that your fabric's not going to run. Okay. These are some of the fabrics that I picked out. Now I also am going to add a white to this first one, okay? And I'm just showing you some of the, how neat these colors were combined. And these were combined for me. I didn't do this myself, but I like to sometimes, maybe that's a good way to go. Buy a set already complete. It's already matched up. There's not a lot of thinking to it. And then you learn what to pick out. Now I'm gonna add white to this because white is going to make some of these colors really jump out of the mini quilt, okay? And again, 100% cotton, and yeah, I think I've explained everything about that, okay? And so let's start cutting some.